Good afternoon. It is News Radio 1029 KARN. I am your host, Brad Schmidt. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. 501-403-KARN is the phone number, 501-403-5276 if you'd want to join the conversation, be a part of the discussion today. We'd love to have you be a part of it. We always say the show is just that much better when you all interact. If I just hoot and holler for 4 hours, it's not nearly as interesting of a show as it is when you all join us and share your thoughts and weigh in on the topics that we're talking about. So I do mean that in all seriousness. I don't like to do shows where I don't get to talk with you and interact with you, the listener. It's a whole lot more fun when you do. So there is a lot to get to today, a lot to talk about. Of course, the big announcement last night, New York City Mayor Eric Adams was indicted on charges of bribery and soliciting foreign donations and some other things there. A few folks have pointed this out. I immediately was wondering about this as well. And a friend sent me the same kind of comment last night. It makes you wonder if there was a little bit of coordination on the part of the Democrat Party to bring an end to Mayor Adams' career. And people say, well, why would you think that? Why would you think that the Democrats were behind this? Mayor Adams is a Democrat. Well, the big question that is raised in all of this discussion is the fact that Mayor Adams didn't really want to play ball on the immigration stuff. He spoke out and actually called the Biden-Harris administration to on the carpet about the issue of immigration and said, look, we got a problem. New York City is facing some serious issues because of the illegal immigration. And because he wasn't willing to play ball, because he wasn't willing to toe the party line, as they say, he was suddenly a bit of a pariah. And it wasn't long after that people around him, his cabinet members, his staff and such, being indicted, being investigated. And it makes you wonder, a little bit at least, did the Democrat Party have something to do with this? Did they say to Mayor Adams, look, we can't have you as a rogue agent here, and so we're going to make sure we find something on you. And there's one of the things we're going to talk about with this today, if we get the chance, there's an entire class of class isn't maybe the right word. There's an entire cottage industry. I'll say it that way. An entire cottage industry of political consulting and fundraising and all that sort of stuff. And there's some very, very shady things that go on along with these consulting firms connecting quote unquote donors. And I use that term lightly. With candidates and things like that. There was about a year ago, the big Act Blue controversy and the fact that Act Blue was being accused of being nothing more than a money laundering machine for the Democrat Party. And so this is not uncommon. Some of the things that are being accused, or that Mayor Adams is being accused of, I would not be surprised if Mayor Adams and basically every other major politician in the country on all sides, on Republican, Democrat, everyone, are involved in similar kinds of behavior, because we have made getting elected to office so expensive that the only way to do it is to engage the services of these political consulting firms. It is very rare that an independent, and I don't mean independent as far as party goes, but independent, like outside of the party establishment, outside of the machine, is able to get elected. It takes a very rare sort of set of circumstances that this happens, where the lone wolf, if you will, is able to defeat the establishment. And so one of the questions I would actually ask in this is, are we going to say innocent until proven guilty on this one? I mean, there's some pretty damning evidence. If you've read any of the indictment, you'll see that they've got some a significant amount of evidence stacked up against Mayor Adams. He is alleged to have taken, hundreds of thousands of dollars in benefits and donations and things like that for his political favor and all that. But one simply has to ask, I mean, if we're going to be honest, right? We say all the time, all the things that they attack Donald Trump with, innocent until proven guilty, even after he's been proven guilty, like the 34 and felony convictions in New York. Even after being found guilty, we're still going, it was a crooked court. It was stacked against him before they ever started, and he's appealing. And so I think we at least have to have the same point of view with Mayor Adams. Just because we don't like Mayor Adams, just because Mayor Adams is a Democrat in a big blue city, doesn't mean that we get to immediately impose upon him guilt and say, oh, he's absolutely 100% guilty. We know he's guilty. We know he's guilty because he's a Democrat, and all Democrats are guilty. Well, that's no different than the Democrats saying the similar things about Donald Trump. And so if we're going to be consistent, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, we have to at least acknowledge that there's a possibility that Mayor Adams is actually not guilty of this stuff, that this is also possibly a political witch hunt. And quite honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a political witch hunt. Now, I also wouldn't be surprised if it's both, if it is a political witch hunt and he's guilty. And had he towed the line with the party about immigration and illegal immigration, that this probably would have never come to light. Nobody would have ever found out about this. It would have been more effectively covered up, if you will. And so there's a lot to discuss in this. We'll talk a little bit about the Act Blue controversy and the essentially, for those that haven't heard of this, the controversy that is the Act Blue discussion. Essentially what Act Blue was doing, and I'm gonna hyper simplify this because I just don't have much time before the break. Imagine some big donor like a George Soros on the Democrat side, or the Koch brothers on the Republican side, or whatever, and they give, say, $1 million donation to Act Blue or to one of these other similar kinds of organizations. That $1 million is then split up into a multitude of individual donations. And Bob over here suddenly gave $500 to Kamala Harris, and Sally gave $500 to Kamala Harris, and George and Nancy and all of these individuals are suddenly giving these small dollar donations to a preferred candidate of the organization. And in reality, it's essentially a way for them to get away from or to skirt around the maximum donation per person in a federal election. And so what they do is they find people who either have never donated or will kind of fly under the radar and maybe never be noticed that they've donated. And they essentially just assign this person and their address or their taxpayer ID number or whatever to a donation to a candidate. And this was exposed back, I'd like to say, I think it was about a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe even during the previous election cycle. This was exposed by James O'Keefe, where he essentially took the list of these donors in an area and just went knocking on doors and said, "Hey, we have a list here that says that you donated to candidate so and so in the amount of X amount of dollars," and the individual goes, "No, I didn't. I've never donated to anything like that. I've never donated to any campaign, or in fact, I've actually donated to the opposing candidate." And it was exposed that that's what was going on, is they were taking a large donation from a large donor, splitting it up into small donation, assigning it to people who didn't even know sometimes that they were being used as quote unquote donors. So there's part of me that wonders if something like this wasn't going on within the Adams campaign. And I don't know exactly what all of the charges are. I didn't read the entirety of the indictment. I know he's been charged with bribery. I know he's been charged with soliciting foreign donations and some other things. But so there's something to discuss here, because I really, truly believe that this kind of thing is happening all across the country. And most of us just aren't aware of it. And candidates are then able to say, see, we're a grassroots organization. We're a grassroots campaign. We're all of our money's coming from small individual donors and so on and so forth. So we'll get into that. We'll talk a little bit. I've got some audio of the Kamala Harris interview from last night. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And there's just a lot going on. We'll continue with the Schmidt Show in a moment on News Radio 102.9 KRN.